Yo, and welcome back to Creeps and Crimes
podcast.
Oh my God, I just bit my lip. I'm Taylar.
And I'm Morgan. Happy Thursday and happy episode 205.
Baby.
Did you guys like last week?
I loved it.
Turns out that we all sound alike.
Yeah, we had no idea until that recording went out. And then everyone was like, people were commenting on it too. They're like, I had to go watch the video to make sure that it wasn't a prank and that y'all weren't just acting like there was another person there.
It was crazy.
I mean, I obviously knew my voice and I know Morgan's voice and I know Madison's voice. But like when we would all be talking and come out of it and be on that build up.
And we have a huge problem of talking at the same time and screaming.
Yeah, they're talking screaming at the same time. There's no such thing as talking.
Who's louder?
It's like truly
who can be heard right now?
Crescendo of like voices when we're, and I was like, oh my God. So I had to stop what I was doing, go back, download all of the SD cards, put them on there, and then I just listened.
Just so you could see.
Just so I could see it, and then I just manually chopped all of those camera switches instead of leaving it to the thing.
It was a production.
Oh, it was
awesome.
It was a 12-hour production. It was iconic, to be honest. It was really awesome. I was so excited to edit it that I jumped out of bed that morning and ran. Why am I talking like this?
I was so excited
this morning that I jumped out of the bed.
Very respectful.
Anyways, what are you the CEO of?
I am the CEO of being an artist.
Being an artiste,
I didn't even send you a picture yet.
No, I haven't seen the picture yet.
I don't have a picture. It's currently in my garage. On Sunday, I was like, I just got this urge to jump out of the couch and run down to the basement and look around and be like, what can I do? Because I'm fucking bored. And I see my Last Supper painting. I go and I just start ripping the back of it.
Oh my God, Morgan.
I know. I had no plan or whatsoever. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this today. I'll figure it out.
What's this? No one knows.
And I start ripping the back of it, causing me to rip the painting.
Oh, shit.
And it was actually like a screen print.
Yeah.
Like, poster.
It's not like the real.
Yeah.
It wasn't the real Last Supper.
But I'll tell you what, God let hellfire rain down on me this week as karmic for what I did to their painting. So anyway, I grab it and I'm looking at this frame. I'm like, okay, what can I do? I'm like, oh, I don't have a canvas, but I do have linen tablecloths. So I can cut it. I can wrap it around this cardboard back of the frame. And this frame is huge. It's like 5 foot by 3 foot. Like it's huge. So I do that. So I take my tablecloth, go running upstairs. And my original intention was I'm going to paint the tablecloth the color of the wall. Okay. Because I had those sample paintings from when we were fixing it. I'm going to paint it the color of the wall. And then I was going to put paint on Ollie's paws and have him walk across it.
Okay.
Tried that, smeared, couldn't see anything.
Oh God.
Terrible. So I was like, okay, cut a new piece, paint it again. I'm on Pinterest, I'm scrolling, I'm like, what can I do? Like I don't have the artistic ability
to do something
to actually paint a portrait, but like I know I can do something, you know? I'm really believing in myself. And so I find this link and it's like using cardboard scraps to create a painting. I'm like, perfect. So I find another piece of how many cardboard boxes are in the garage?
100,000 trillion.
So I just start cutting cardboard into squares. Perfect squares. Takes me a couple hours. That's when I hear Aaron yell, hey, Logan said they're going to Soccer Taco if you want to go. I'm like, does it look like I want to go?
I'm being an artiste.
Literally an artist. At the same time, he's walking in from golf also. And he walks over top of me. He goes, what are you doing? I was like, new living room art. Like just like that. That's how I said it. And all I have right now is cut cardboard.
He's like, beautiful.
And he was like, no. And I'm like, what? Like I'm like actually distraught. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no. And I'm like, Aaron, what are you even saying? He's like, you're not an artist. And I was like, what the fuck? You literally just stole. That was so rude.
You literally crushed my dreams.
Right now, why don't you just go to Soccer Taco with the Fetzers? Because now I'm pissed.
And you're grounded.
And now I'm driven to be an artist. So I'm cutting up my boards and you're supposed to place them really close together like tile. Mm-hmm. And then they're painted like all the same color, but you use baking soda. I was doing all of that, but
I wish I had the
painting was so big. And I was tired of cutting cardboard.
Oh, no.
So what did I decide to do? Instead of putting them all together in the row, I was spacing them out.
No.
And I was like, I'll just paint a couple of different colors and then I'll be checkerboard.
Oh, no. The vision just didn't have an end.
And the vision, it wasn't coming together.
No,
so
yeah.
I'm like kind of seeing like, oh, this is really bad. But I can't walk past Aaron in the living room with this because then he's already crushed my spirit and has not been a supportive husband in my adventure into being an artist.
Yep.
So I'm like walking out of the front door. He's laying on the couch. I'm hiding it from the Ring camera just in case he looks. And then when I walk down in front of the window, I'm lifting it up so he can't see that way. And I walk around the front of the house. I'm lifting it this way so that he can't see it. I go and I try to put it in the frame. One, it's too small. How does that make sense? It was literally the cardboard backing of the picture.
What the fuck?
How does that make sense? And two, it looked atrocious.
I wish I could
and
see it.
I was like, I gotta face Aaron when I walk back in empty-handed. So I just leave it all down in the garage. I'm down there for like 10 minutes trying to make something work.
Oh my God.
And I walk back in the house and he's just looking at me with the biggest fucking grin on his face. And I'm like,
I'd have
hey.
fought him.
I'm like, what's up? He's like, what? It didn't work out? And I was like, no. He was howling, laughing, and he was chasing me around the house, laughing at me. And I'm like, you're done. You're done for.
You're so done for.
So that is what, long story. That is what I'm the CEO of, attempting to be creative.
Be
a
an
creative
artiste.
mind.
Yes.
I had a vision. I was a visionary.
Something must have been in the air on Sunday because I am now the CEO of Witches Brooms.
Yes, you are.
So Sunday
Executed perfectly.
No, no.
Not like my cardboard painting.
Not perfectly. There's a long story, but I'm gonna keep it short. Anyways, last weekend, guys, I don't know if you live in East Tennessee, but there was a cool, crisp fall breeze in the air.
And now it's 96.
Now it's
7 o'clock at night.
fucking 100 degrees out. But anyways, last week there was this like little inkling of fall, and I was like, I'm taking
It's
this.
time.
I'm taking it and I'm running with it because fall, it like rejuvenates me after it breaks me down. It murders me and then it builds me back up. And so I'm like, I'd rather, let's just go ahead and get the beating done with. Mm-hmm. So I'm diving head first. So I go to our storage unit. I clean out this bathroom that I use as a storage room because it's the stupidest bathroom on the planet in my house. And I'd clean out that, which I've been needing to. And we go to the storage unit and I get all of my like Halloween fall decorations out and I put all the shit from the stupid bathroom back into the storage unit because I had taken an Adderall that morning.
I wish you guys could see the storage unit. We went in there one time to get suitcases.
Skyscrapers tall.
And you were climbing tables to get the suitcases from 12 feet behind.
It's crazy.
And 12 feet up.
So we go there. We have to go to Costco. I was pissed, but we went to Costco. But anyways, before we go to Costco, we stopped by the lovely CBD store because I decided that I would like to try more microdosing edibles. Just something to keep me calm because we're about to be in our crazy season that I can just low dose on and not have really bad anxiety. So we go in there, and then while I'm in there, I said to Logan that I was done using the Benjamin for at least a month. But when we were in there, they got my favorite flavor back.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and get it because they never fucking have it. And I was like, I just won't use it. Spoiler alert, I have used it. But it's because they make you test it because it's disposable before you walk out. So they're like, we make sure it's working. And I'm just...
Why do they do that to you?
I don't fucking know. But I'm intending...
They do that shit as a joke. I'm
I
serious.
swear to God they do. So I'm intending on taking the smallest little nibble to make sure that it works. So I'm not ripped. No, I'm ripped, and we have to go into Costco. So we go into Costco, and I'm regretting every decision I've ever made in my life. Before we go home, I'm like, Logan, swing into the Home Depot. We're going to get the trimmer because our bushes are fucking crazy and I'm over it. And of course, while we're there and Logan's having to pick out the best trimmer, I am in the garden section. Mums, tons of other things I can't think of the name of, and they're just all so beautiful in like Halloween colors. I buy them all. And I got stands to go outside. And as I'm in there, there's just like this witch's broom decoration for your front porch. And I'm like, I need that because I repurposed some old branches that we tore down from a tree and I hung them over my front door like a big arbor. And they're probably like, your house looks like a junk city show. No,
actually looks great.
It looks really cute. So anyways, I needed something to connect that row of branches on the ground. And this wooden witch's broom was perfect. It was $30. I was like, fuck that. Fuck that. I can make that. So I take a picture of it. We drive home. I get all my plants, come home, set up all my plants. I go into the back. I drag the rest of the branches I have left over from creating the arbor, and I start just skinning them. And I'm sitting there with a pocket knife, skinning them on the back, just getting them thin enough to make bristles. My hands are cut to shit. Look at this. Like deep cuts too, all over me. I cut myself a million times. Go get a saw. Use it to cut the biggest branch so I can have the neck of the broom. Cut it in half. Then I sand all of that down so it's smooth. I put hot glue on the top so it won't like give you splinters.
That's what I needed this weekend.
Yeah, you need some hot glue. Gorilla glue on the bottom. Used fishing wire that I found. Individually wrapped all the strands around each of the bristles because I'm backside with my knife and you're cutting cardboard in your basement.
That's hilarious.
I don't know what the fuck happened on Sunday, but I hope everyone's arts and crafts looked great.
That's so funny because whenever you sent me the snap of your thing, I was like, I have a little bit of time. If my painting didn't work well, I'll at least pull out my fall stuff. Tell me why I thought I had numerous fall decorations. I open up my box.
Yep.
It's all Christmas trees, one pumpkin.
No.
I have one pumpkin
pumpkin
decoration. I don't know where my shit went.
Where is it at?
I truly think it just didn't make it from the apartment. And I think we didn't do fall last year. Because remember,
You didn't.
we went straight into Christmas. I was using your Christmas stuff.
Yeah, and you got rid of all of the other stuff from Halloween because
I just probably didn't
you were
want to
gonna
pack
get
it
new
up.
stuff for the new place.
Yeah.
And you hadn't
And
yet.
I literally was so excited. I was like, oh, I have my table runner gone.
Oh no.
I have one. I was so excited. I opened my box. I'm like, what the fuck? I have one pumpkin.
That is so discouraging.
But good thing my mom's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And
Beth
you know
Ann's got
Beth Ann
it.
will fix that porch up.
Yep.
She'll
she
have
will.
mums on every
Mums
step
everywhere.
by Monday.
Yeah, I'm guaranteed.
Guaranteed. And then
Guaranteed.
I'm also gonna I get paid too, so I'll go and we'll do a little like Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
Home goods, old time pottery ordeal.
Old time pottery.
Because I
for
need
sure.
to get some fall decorations. I just don't know what I want. Sorry, this is really long. We sat here and we talked for 3 hours and then we were like, we're so tired. We're so tired. We should walk and get a coffee. We should go get coffee right now.
We walk and go get a coffee. We're sweating because we forgot because inside of here it's an Arctic tundra and outside it's a million degrees. So we're like, we'll just walk over there real fast. Morgan's like, no. I'm like, come on, let's just walk. Let's just walk. We need to get our yappies out. No, we
didn't get our yappies out. We came back here. We talked again for another hour and a half. We're terrible.
We're bad.
Because now we have caffeine in us and we're like,
that was so millennial cringy what we just did. And because of that, we need to wrap it up.
if you're driving, throw that shit on cruise control.
If you got a glass, pour that shit up.
And let's get
Creepy. Okay, Morgie Poo, what do you have for us today?
9 different Google Drives pulled up.
Me
and I need
too.
to figure out my life real quick.
Guys, while Morgan's finding this case, I just wanted to bring up the fact that we have someone. If you're a if you're a Patreon,
You're a paying member.
If you're a Patreon, if you're a member of the OG Pick Me Cult or the Big Money Bomb Bitches, please go to your Patreon and read our most recent post. We'll definitely have it out by Thursday, but we're having to change our schedule for September, and we just want to let you guys know before the pay period comes, because it's going to be a little different this month, and we don't want you guys to be like,
What the fuck?
yeah, and then spending money on something.
Yeah.
But
Check that out.
check that out. And then we got the ads situated again. By the way, guys, me and Morgan are sitting there talking, and I'm like, dude, you would think that fucking Mercury's in retrograde. Sure as shit, Mercury's in retrograde.
Classic.
And so we got that handled. Someone messaged us and said that there's still issues with Spotify, but it's just like, it's not everyone's Spotify.
So weird.
It's because they're doing system updates. And then another thing, we learned that there's been an update with Apple, and now you have to go back to manually downloading all of your episodes to make it to where it basically says on the back end that you listen to our podcast, which is crazy, because how the fuck they just changed that overnight makes no sense. Because
and why they went backwards with what they were
right,
doing.
those analytics literally are the only way that we get paid, is by having proof that people listen to us and listen to the ads. And if you're not a Patreon and you don't have the space on your phone to download, the best thing that you can do is literally just sit through our ads and listen to them. But if it now, that used to be the case, but then now it's you guys have to download the episodes, which it used to be like that. They changed it, and then they just changed it back, and it's hurting everyone's downloads. I mean, everyone's struggling with this right now, and we don't know exactly how it's affecting yet, or if it's going to be negative, but I'm sure you guys are hearing it from your other like podcasts that you listen to regularly. Ladies and Tangents, I learned from them about this.
Yeah. Jerry had texted us.
Yeah. And so I was listening to their episode and I was like, hold the fuck up.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. And so we texted them and then Jerry let us know everything that was going on. And it made complete sense because we were just like, what the fuck? Where are you bitches at?
Yeah.
It's because it's not giving you guys the like listen unless it's downloaded, which is fucking crazy. But anyways, sorry for that. Just some housekeeping. Just some housekeeping.
And then also remember that as we're approaching September next week, September is our month before season 5. So our season 5 launches October 1st, meaning the last 3 weeks of September are gonna be a little different.
Yeah, so 207, 208, and 209 are going to be similar to what we did last September, which just allows us to flip the entire studio, redo all of the branding for the podcast, and also prepare for all of the big fun changes that are going to be coming in season 5, plus some things that we're working on behind the scene.
Wink, wink. Okay, so if you've heard the most recent Patreon episode, if you are a Patreon, this is Patreon 70, which... yeah, we'll have that.
Yeah, it should be out by now.
We wait till you guys hear that.
Yeah.
Then you heard our spiral about this cryptid in our very own backyard that we had never heard of. This is the not deer cryptid. Not deer as in N-O-T, like that ain't no deer.
That ain't no
deer.
deer. Yeah.
You know?
It's called a not deer.
Yeah, and clearly it resides in the Appalachian region, and that tracks so hard on the name because
it does.
It was like, and I say this as in like, this is my father. Like, I'm not making fun of anybody that lives in the Appalachian region other than my father. And us, it'd be like,
Appalachian.
oh, I saw that thing. That was a deer, but that was no deer. That's a not deer.
That was a not deer.
You know, like that's something my dad would literally say during the story.
Because like, what else are we gonna call that? Just a not deer.
Yeah, and it's just that is a not deer right there.
It's either a deer or it's a not deer.
Exactly. So according to Appalachian Oddity, the not deer lore actually all started on August 21st, 2019.
Oh my God.
When a blogger named Madison, who is a self-described Jewish witch, according to their interview with Appalachian Oddity.
Okay.
Madison had made a post that took the internet by storm. And this wasn't Madison's usual type of post. Mostly their posts were about magic, witchcraft, but it also wasn't the first Appalachian post they had made either. Earlier before this blog went out, Madison made a post about Appalachian lore that they had heard from their mother. This included a mention of things that happened to be near them that looked like deer, but supposedly weren't deer at all. An anonymous user posted a question or asked a question on their thread to clarify what they meant by this. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Deer that looks like a deer, but is not a deer at all. And while the first post received very little attention, it was actually Madison's clarifying story in response to that question that took off. In true blog writer style, they gave an answer in the style of a story. According to Appalachian Oddity, the post went something like this, quote, "You're in a car at night in a rural, heavily wooded area and probably a bit lost. It's not wildly uncommon to see an opossum crossing the road, see blips of little animals with your headlights. You see a deer and slow down in case it leaps in front of you. But when you get a better look at it, you notice there's just something wrong about it. There's something about its eyes. You feel your stomach get heavy like a rock, the hair on your neck raised. You sense intelligence that you shouldn't. Doesn't move like a deer. Oh God, what is that thing? You hit the gas and get the hell out of there. A group of my friends got lost on the parkway once and reemerged with a chilling story. They aren't the kind of folks to lie or over-exaggerate. Among other freaky stuff that happened, the driver claimed she saw a deer in the road. And then she noticed the deer was on 2 legs.
Oof.
So that is Madison's response to this question. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? In 2020, this post made its way to the Reddit thread Appalachia, where a user shared it and stated that they couldn't find anything else online about it, and they were wondering if anyone had heard of such a thing. Anyone got a story like this? You know, they're asking questions.
Right.
And this is when hundreds of people on the Appalachian Reddit thread started sharing their own strange deer stories in the comments. And then the popularity continued to grow, causing a TikTok viral sensation of people catching not deer on their trail cams. At first glance, this cryptid looks like your average deer, but as it gets closer to you, you'll realize that this is no deer at all, and that almost everything about this creature is wrong.
Oh, shit.
The idea of the not deer is an urban legend that comes from the Appalachian region. The Appalachian mountain ranges stretches across 1,500 miles of the United States and Canada, making up parts of several states including Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New York.
Yes, ma'am.
Unlike regular deer, not deer have no fear of people, and some are even said to stalk and hunt humans for their prey. The not deer is said to be a large black creature with a long neck and no visible antlers. Its appearance is similar to that of a deer, but it has a few distinct differences. In most sightings, not deer are reported to have eyes that face forward like humans, compared to a regular deer where they are kind of off to the side of like the nose or like whatever that piece of bone is called.
Yeah.
Or they could have too many or too few eyes.
Oh.
They are said to have unnaturally shaped antlers, if any antlers at all, as well as claws or hands instead of the expected hoofs.
Yeah. Hoofs.
I
don't know.
Hoofs.
I'm trying to also figure it out.
Hooves.
We're just
Hoofs.
echoing each other.
Oh, I thought you were like trying to give me.
I'm just.
Their teeth also look more like fangs of sharp teeth, like a shark.
Oh, shit.
They are extremely intelligent and able to mimic deer to avoid detection.
Oop.
Upon closer inspection, people have found that the proportions of them are really off. Several firsthand descriptions have included that they have more or less joints than they should have if they were a deer, and that they have the proportions of a moose, and with those proportions it's wildly disproportionate. So like it's giant like a moose, but it doesn't make any sense.
It's like kind of like Uncanny Valley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's extremely uncanny,
Like
and a lot
off.
of the articles use that word.
Yeah.
Specifically, they also don't gracefully move like a normal deer, but instead have these like jagged and aggressive movements. And someone related it to a newborn deer trying to walk, how it's like all awkward and like disjointed. Like I said earlier, they aren't afraid of humans. Witnesses have reported that upon encountering the not deer, whether they're driving down the road at night or they're taking a hike through the woods, the animal would face them and run them down rather than run away.
Oh, shit. Like
that's
charge
very,
at them.
Yes. Very undeer-like.
Yeah.
That's a not deer.
That's a not deer
right there if I've ever heard
one. That is
one.
not deer etiquette.
But the origin of the not deer did not start in 2019 and actually goes back to stories that started with indigenous groups that inhabited the Appalachian region, which is why a lot of people think that not deer are really S-dubs.
Oh.
Yeah. So as a refresher, S-dubs are common in Navajo folklore, and they are these practitioners who use witchcraft to shapeshift and transform themselves into the form of animals for numerous reasons. Mm-hmm. And like S-dubs, some say that they are able to shapeshift into deer, but that these extra or sometimes missing parts that describe not deer are actually the result of the shift not being completed. So we're either catching them like mid transformation or like out of transformation, or
and if you guys are a little lost for a second, it took my brain a second to load. S-dub is SKINWALKER.
yeah, we don't like to say it.
Is that spelled right?
Skin
Yeah.
jogger.
Yeah.
The skin joggers.
The skin joggers.
We don't like to say that word.
No.
So we call them S-dubs, like B-dubs, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, like the piece of the Appalachian forest is literally in our backyard. We can't right now. We can't say
be
that.
saying that.
We
shit.
can't be saying that.
Talking shit like not deer.
Yeah,
Can't be saying
no
that.
shot.
Others have said that the not deer may be a reiteration of another urban legend, like the Wendigo.
Okay.
Which I haven't covered, which maybe
you
will come
haven't?
soon. I don't think so.
I feel like I thought you had.
Maybe a Patreon then, because I don't remember.
Maybe. I don't know.
So the Wendigo is a legend that's most commonly around the region of the Great Lakes. And this is a half deer, half man, and has this like crazy hunger for human flesh. Like they eat people.
Oof.
But since most people describe the not deer as being a lot more ominous and strange or uncanny, like Taylar said, rather than like outright bloodthirsty, then there's a big argument that not deer are way different from Wendigo, and they're more so aligned with S-dubs. Mm-hmm. The legend suggests that encountering a not deer is a sign of something ominous or supernatural, and others believe that it's a sign that death is coming.
Oh.
People who see these creatures may experience a sense of dread or unease, and since the not deer appears to be this mimic or this like corrupted version of something familiar, aka uncanny, then it'll quickly turn malevolent or otherworldly, that it's going to make you feel that dread or why people think that it has this like death lingering around it.
Yeah.
But of course, people debunk the newly founded cryptid with one explanation: CWD, or chronic wasting disease, or zombie deer disease.
Oh,
You ever heard of this?
I know zombie
I
deer.
remember my dad teaching me about this. Like, you gotta make sure you ain't got that zombie disease.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah, sorry.
I've heard of the zombie
During
disease.
deer season only.
Yeah, duh. I've heard of zombie deer disease, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so according to the CDC, chronic wasting disease, or CWD, is a type of prion disease, and it occurs when proteins normally in the body like will misfold, causing symptoms that eventually result in death. It's very similar to the human mad cow disease or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Okay, yeah.
There is no treatment currently available for humans or animals, and the disease can take up to 2 years to kill the host, leaving the animal to suffer a very slow and painful death.
Oh.
CWD affects many different species of animals with hooves.
Yeah.
Hooves. Scientists think that it spreads between animals through contact with saliva, blood, urine, or feces of an animal that has already had or has CWD. They suspect it can spread also indirectly through the environment, like in soil, drinking water, or food. And then once an animal gets sick, the disease moves to its brain and spine pretty quickly, and it will eventually kill the animal. It's most commonly seen in North American deer, elk, and moose. And animals infected with CWD gradually will lose their body condition, fat and muscle mass, becoming emaciated, and they may behave abnormally, displaying a wide stance, staggering gait, or the inability to keep their head up with excessive salivation and thirst. And they also will change their behavioral like antics. So instead of being afraid of humans, they're no longer afraid
Kind of like
of
a
humans.
raccoon with rabies. They'll just like walk up to you in the middle of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The disease is ultimately fatal to all infected animals. So this is the not deer, but I'm not done yet. Like I said, it's just surfaced the internet a couple years ago. So a cryptid needs time to soak.
Yeah, marinate.
And marinate into the lore, and more people need to come forward with their stories, which is why I'm going to be reading a Reddit post about it. Someone's encounter with a not deer, or what's believed to be a not deer. And get this. I found this in the comments because you know why? It's even crazier in the comments. You get it if you're on Patreon.
Oh my God. Maybe if the episode's out.
Okay, so this was under the Reddit post, like, anybody seen a not deer, in the Appalachian Reddit thread, and it was posted by user &Dotsies. It says, personal account. I lived in Waynesboro, Virginia for about 5 years, less than 10 miles to the BRP North Entrance, Skyline Drive South Entrance. I used to take bike rides along SD all the time and always kept a year-long membership. Only in the day, though, just to frame the story. One night, I was having a particularly hard time settling in for bed, so I decided to start up the bike and ride up to the first overlook on Skyline, only about a mile inside the park. I don't know what this is, but I'm assuming it's like a motorcycle, like, kind of drive that's like commonly used for
probably like a
motorcyclists.
trail. Yeah, like a motorized trail.
Okay. It was about 11 p.m. when I got up there, and pitch black. I killed the bike and got immediately uncomfortable. I'm not a guy that gets spooked in the dark. Truthfully, I prefer the dark in most situations. You can see people before they see you. You are practically invisible unless someone is looking for you, and I find the natural privacy comforting. Not up there, though. It was a thick, oppressive dark, worse than anything I experienced outside of a cave, and worse than any moonless night on the Appalachian Trail. I immediately got hinked out, big time. There's nothing up here besides wildlife, I reassured myself internally. I had my .44 mag revolver from when I hiked in the Pacific Northwest, bear country and all that jazz, tucked into my CCW holster, so I knew I definitely outmatched anything that could be up there, two-legged snakes included. So I sat in the dark, leaning against the bike for a while and looking at the few lights that I could see in the valley below. I managed about 10 minutes before I physically felt the hair rise on the back of my neck. I only did 27 months in Iraq, but I remember that precise feeling. Someone was watching me.
Oh, shit.
Something bad was coming. It was the same sensation I would get before IDF came in, or the shooting started somewhere nearby. I'm no psychic or whatever, but it's a common thing among vets with any time under their belt. Ask them about it. You can feel hateful eyes on you. The overlook was a sheer drop, or nearly so I wasn't concerned about anything popping up in that direction, but the mountainside and thick untamed woods were behind me. I started thinking about methed out dudes creeping the Appalachian Trail, bears, and the like. The AT is no Appalachian Trail. The AT is no stranger to random violence. Still creeped out, I took up a seat on the waist-high stone wall that marked the overlook ledge, facing the woods. Again, I can't emphasize how dark it was, but Gris, you might say, why not turn on the bike and use the lights? It'll at least help you see what's close. True, but my bike is loud and the last thing I wanted was attention. Plus, the light would just night blind me to anything just out of view, and the noise would obscure any stealthy sounding creeping going on. So no thanks. I'll watch and listen for a bit. I sat in the dark for another 10 minutes or so, anxiety getting worse and worse. I heard a few things, but nothing out of the ordinary for a night in the woods. I decided to head on home since the feeling wasn't going away. Like I said, I had a big bore on me, so anything playing games would be in a powerful surprise if the games got stupid. Hopping onto my Suzuki, I started it up and rode off towards the gate. Now, anyone who lives in the country and rides a bike knows that wildlife is crazy active on roads that aren't traveled often at night. Being nighttime and technically closed, I had to ride around a gate to get in. There were no other vehicles on the road at all. I hadn't seen a single other person since leaving Waynesboro proper. The speed limit was 30 miles per hour, but I clipped along at a measly 15 to keep an eye out for deer and wildlife. It wouldn't do any good to fuck myself up in a wreck, only to lay there all night until someone happened to cross me in the morning. And then I saw it. The term of almost deer is really fitting, not but quite accurate. It was like a deer that someone who had never seen a deer drew, but only after someone else described it to them. It stood on the left side of the road, mountainside, and I saw the eyes long before my headlight shone it fully. It was big, easily the biggest deer I've seen, and the lack of any horns that time in the year suggests that it was a doe. The head was almost bovine in shape, but fixed to a deer's frame. The legs seemed too long in proportion to the body, think maned wolf proportions, and the body was extremely barrel-chested. I've always been creeped out by malformed wildlife, and this was no exception. Unfortunately, I had to get it to move or risk passing within a few feet of it. I was not traveling another 30 miles up the road in the other direction to leave through another gate in the middle of the night, and I wasn't getting close to it. Dangers of it spooking and running into the side of my cruiser aside, I didn't want to get near it at all. Stopping and putting my feet down about 30 feet away from it, I tried to frighten it away. I flashed my beams down to low and back to high, nothing. I revved the engine, nothing. I honked the considerable horn, nothing. Resting the bike, did we write this? Nothing.
Nothing. Me.
Resting the bike on the kickstand, I left it idling and hopped off. I yelled at the thing and it still didn't budge. So I started to the side of the road to grab something to toss near the deer thing, hoping to spook it away. As soon as I crossed into the other lane, it rose up onto its hind legs.
Oh, shit.
I froze, putting my hand on my gun. I wasn't about to get charged by an angry, confused, malformed doe. It took two jerky, unnatural steps towards the center of the lane on two legs and froze again, staring directly at me. It suddenly shook its head wildly like a dog with a toy, took another short step, and then hopped on two legs several times until it disappeared onto the darkness on the right side of the road. I stepped back to the bike, mounted it, kicked up the kickstand, and turned the light towards the side of the road. On that side, there was a sheer drop-off, about 75 to 80 degrees compared to the roadway, and the fucking thing's head was just peeking over the edge, still looking at me. The drop-off was about 40 to 50 feet, so there's no way it was standing at the base of the mountainside. I cracked the throttle and beat the hell out of there. Road wildlife be damned. I never went back up on Skyline Drive at night alone after that. One time was enough. There are things we don't mess with out there or things that just visit for a while. Whatever it wasn't from around these here parts in Hill Talk. It can go back to wherever it came from and stay there. And then everybody in these comments were like, same thing happened to me, same area.
Shut the fuck up.
Crazy. So anyway, that's the not deer. Like we said, this might be something we could revisit in a couple years after it marinates.
It marinates.
Cryptids take years,
They do.
decades.
You think Bigfoot just fell out of a coconut tree?
Okay. I mean, really though, do you think the Loch Ness monster just grew legs and started walking in a lake one day?
What do you think happened?
That was good. You sounded just like her. That was crazy. That was crazy.
I've been dying to use that quote at some point.
It was perfect.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Anyway, yeah, so we're going to let it marinate. We might circle back to it in a couple years. If you are interested or if you have a not deer story, fucking send it in, one. But two, if you want to learn more, literally Google it on TikTok because Google it on TikTok.
Wait.
Search it on TikTok. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And how about we do that? How about please send in your personal cryptid stories?
All it reminded me of was the photo frame in my bedroom that the listener sent us with the big black
deer.
object
Yeah.
and the dead deer on the side of the road.
Yeah. Ew.
So that's a not deer.
What if you saw it right after it shed its deer clothes?
Oh. And we didn't know about not deer, so we were like, S-dub.
Oh my God. Wait,
Right there, that's a not deer.
That's a not deer. That is a not deer. I think that was out of Utah, right?
Yeah, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Whoa.
Crazy story. That was a creepy account that someone sent us, and then they sent us a picture.
Yeah. Send us your personal cryptid creepy accounts.
Yes.
Cryptid creepy accounts. Anytime you think you saw Bigfoot,
CCAs.
your grandpa saw Bigfoot, I want to send it. And please clickbait us. I saw fucking Bigfoot. I don't know what I saw, but it was a cryptid. Creepy account cryptid. Just like that.
Please. I called my dad, and I was like, I'm going to record this just in case he has something really good to say. Because I could hear my dad come up with something like, holy shit, I think I've seen a not deer before. Mm-hmm. And so I call him, and I recorded it. Nothing came out of it, but it was still funny that I recorded it because we loved the conversation.
It's so
but
funny.
He's like, that shit, I never heard of it, sweetie. That just sounds like something someone drunk would see. And we're like, all right. He's like, is this for one of your stories on creeps and crimes?
Creeps and crimes?
It was so cute.
I love Bucky. Okay, Morgan. Well, thanks so much. That was so good. I love the not deer. I think people have stories like this, you know, like
I feel like I have a story this, but I don't.
My whole family has stories about not deer that are not called not deer.
I'm like, Dad, you are a fucking hunter, buddy.
They've got something. They're just not thinking about it.
And he was sick, and also he was driving on the interstate, and his phone was like, I was FaceTiming him, so his phone was like up here. I was just looking at his nose hairs. And you could tell he was stressed.
Yeah. Dads can't FaceTime
and he was sick. And
Yeah.
like, I was like, okay.
It's really bad. You can't call a dad on their way home from work ever.
Yeah, no.
That's the rules.
Especially after you work 12-hour shifts.
So stressful. You'd think that they like were trudging through the snow to get home. Like their lore stories. That's what my dad always says.
That phone call, what I sent you, that's how our phone calls go. That quick.
Classic.
Cryptid. Oh, it's a cryptid. I know. Like Bigfoot.
You're like, how's your day? He barely gets done talking. And Morgan's like, well, I got a question. I was bent over,
sweetie?
crying, laughing. It was so good. It was so cute.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Morgan. Send in your cryptid creepy accounts. You're not deer. And we're going to kick it over to moi. So the case I have for you guys today is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to initially be. And because of that, I didn't get to go as far into the details as you guys know I typically like to do. But don't fret. There are 20 pages of details for you.
Cool.
And there could have been 40 more, but I controlled myself. Because, guys, I really was like, I could do a two-parter on their asses. I could pull a two-parter out on their asses.
It would be convenient for you.
And I didn't do it because I love you guys and you deserve better than that. Okay.
She doesn't love me.
I know. So this case is really sad. It's going to be one of those cases.
Not right after the not deer.
I know. I didn't know. I didn't know we were going to be funsies. Okay. So the case I have for you is really sad.
Juices were flowing, like we said.
Yeah. They were flowing.
Into emotions.
Mine did not flow that well. They separated and they went on a hyper focus. So I'm going to give you a trigger warning for rape, brutal, gory details from really awful murders. This is a hard one. This one's a hard one.
Damn it.
I'm really sorry.
Damn it.
I know. But there is like a semi-happy ending. So.
Okay.
It's approximately 2 a.m. on Friday, August 30th, 1997 in Lexington, Kentucky. University of Kentucky senior Chad Goetz was sitting in his living room on his couch in his off-campus apartment house that he shared with his friends. Chad was watching TV as he did some studying and organized his stuff for the new semester because it was only like the second day of classes that Thursday. When out of the corner of his eye, he sees something move past the window in his front yard. He jumps up off the couch and he begins walking towards his front door, which is wide open with only the screen door just pulled to. And as he's walking, he can hear rushed footsteps pounding on his front porch. And just as he approaches the screen door, he comes face to face with a young, petite woman who looks like she's 20, 21 years old. And she is covered in blood from head to toe. So thick that it looked like red paint had been dumped on her.
Oh my God.
With her jaw just kind of dangling from her face. He ushers the girl inside just as she says, "My name is Holly. I was attacked. I was raped. My friend is still out there." Chad begins helping her towards his couch as he is trying to search for the cause of the bleeding, but it was coming from everywhere. Chad said in an interview that she looked like a boxer who had lost this like rough match, like after a match when their faces are like bloodied and there's scratches and injuries because of how bloodied and injured her face was. Chad tells Holly that she's going to be okay. Just lay down on the couch. He's going to call 911. And all she says back to him is, "I don't want to stay in your couch."
Oh.
He tells her, "It's no problem. This is my dirty boy off-campus apartment. Frat couch. Like, lay on it, please." So he, gets her to lay down. He sits her down and he rushes over to the door and he shuts and locks it because he has no idea if someone is chasing her
right
after beating her. And he grabs the phone, calls 911. As he's on the phone with the dispatcher, Chad just keeps talking to Holly, making her talk to him, because it was like the second she got to him, her adrenaline just started going down because she finally felt safe. So she begins going in and out of consciousness. But Chad just kept talking to her. And really all she kept saying back to him every time that she would come back to was, "Don't let them forget my friend. My friend's still out there."
Damn, that's terrifying.
Terrifying.
What year? I'm sorry.
1997.
Okay, University of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we're going to reverse a few hours. Thursday, August 29th, 1997. 20-year-old Holly Dunn was a junior at the University of Kentucky, and it was the second night of classes and a Thursday night. Meaning welcome week parties are pumping and Thirsty Thursday drinks are pouring. So just like pretty much every other student at UK, Holly and her boyfriend, 21-year-old Chris Meyer, decide that they're going to go out to a party with some friends. So Chris packs his trusty dusty backpack with some beers and heads off campus to like an area similar to the fort to go party. They hung out for a little bit at this party, which was being thrown by his friends. And they decide like, it's just not the vibe that they were wanting. So they decide to take Chris's beer backpack and walk down the railroad tracks to watch the trains and hang out. Side note, I don't know exactly, but I think that Chris either used to live in this house with his friends or like on the street like earlier in his college career, because this was his like go-to study spot, go-to hangout spot, and he was like really excited to take Holly there. And another thing to note, Chris and Holly were kind of newly together at this point and had only met the second half of the previous year. And I know like that seems, I think it was like March or February of 1997 and this is August, and I know that kind of seems like a long time in today's time of being together and dating someone, but you have to remember that it's like 1997. There's not like Facebook and shit like that.
Right. If they went home for the summer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he had done. He had been gone for like the last month and a half because he had gone to this, like, he was a big fan of the band Fish and had gone to their music festival, which was like a long period of time. Then he went and like visited friends and family, and then he came back. So they hadn't seen each other in like a month. He had just gotten back like 2 days earlier, and they were figuring out their classes and shit. So this is their first night really getting to hang out since they hadn't seen each other over the summer that much. This means that they were not in the like all over each other phase just yet, but still in the like, I want to talk to you and like have long conversations and get to know you, and then like once we're talking for long enough I'll kiss you type of thing. So like as they're walking out the door, two of Chris's friends were like, "Hey, this party's lame, can we come with you? You guys going to the spot?" And he's like, "Fuck yeah." So they tag along. Dumb boys, so not reading the room.
Right.
Clearly they want to go out there and like be alone, but
right.
Whatever, it's friends, you can't do anything about it. So either way, they walk down the tracks from the house and they pass by this like electrical box that was kind of like the marker of where they were, and Chris leads Holly and the two friends to this like little platform. So they start hanging out there, and it's probably around 11 p.m. by the time they get settled. And Chris's buddies finally, after like a few minutes, read the room, and they're like, all right, we're going to leave them be because they are completely immersed in each other having conversations and not talking to us at all.
Right. We're the outsiders right now.
Right. So they walk back to the party, leaving the couple to get cozy with each other. And about an hour had gone by. It was getting pretty late. So it was probably around midnight that they were like, let's head back. So they pack up Chris's backpack of the beers, and they start walking down the tracks towards the house, kind of laughing to each other because they did not see one train, which was like the whole point of going out there, was to be able to watch the trains. Like Chris was hyping it up so much. He's like, you get to see the trains. Spot. It's like the greatest spot ever. And not a single fucking train went by.
That's funny. Yeah.
So they're like kind of laughing about this.
I have PTSD about the backpack beers because all I'm picturing is Aaron's RVCA backpack from PacSun filled with Miller Lite in college.
Yep. I saw Logan's backpack that was literally torn to shreds.
Yeah.
Smelled like a fucking locker room. Nasty. Yeah.
Because it was also like soccer stuff too. I'm like,
there's cleats in the bottom.
Yeah.
Crumbled up fucking
just a beer backpack is nasty. And why do I still have it in my house?
And tell me why they're always sticky. They're always wet.
Why are they still around currently? Throw them away.
Burn them.
I look at them. I'm like,
Logan doesn't let me throw away backpacks either. He's like, we could use that. I'm like,
for one.
No,
why?
Please let me donate it.
Yeah.
Let me get rid of this. Anyways, so they're like laughing about the fact that they didn't see any of these fucking trains that they came out here, and they're laughing. They're coming up on that electrical box that they use as that marker. And as they're walking up on it, from behind the box, a man jumps up and steps out onto the tracks in front of them. And he says, "Where'd your friends go?" Both Holly and Chris stop in their tracks and begin doing the fast mental math / reading of the situation to realize that clearly this guy's been watching them for a long time. And that means he's probably wanting to attack them. Chris immediately begins trying to defuse the situation, asking the guy what he wants, etc. And from Holly's point of view, that would really be no issue for Chris to talk this situation down because he was 6'5", muscular dude. Whereas this man that had stepped out on the tracks in front of them was like 5'6", maybe 5'8" at most, and had this like lean, wiry muscle to him, but just kind of looked like scrawny.
Yeah.
To be honest. And the man begins telling Chris and Holly to give him all of their cash. And Chris and Holly are like, look, dude, we're two broke college kids. We don't have any cash on us, like nothing. We've got these beers and we've got cards, like ATM cards, and you can have all of it. You can have the backpack, you can have whatever you want, but just, leave us alone. The man refuses, and he begins to like pace and start moving really erratically in front of them. Chris is watching this guy's every single move, kind of stepping towards the man in order to put Holly like halfway behind him. So Chris says again, look, dude, we don't have any money. These beers are all yours. You can have whatever you want from me, but do not touch her. Stay away from her. At which point, the now very agitated man begins barking orders at Chris, telling him to get on his hands and knees on the ground. And shockingly enough to Holly, Chris follows the man's instructions. He slowly tosses his backpack towards him, puts his hands up, and gets down on his knees in front of this man. Once Chris is down, with Holly still standing semi behind him, the man begins going through the backpack that's sitting between them. He doesn't find anything though, so he dumps it out. He walks behind Chris. Holly moves in front of him, and he begins to use Chris's backpack to tie Chris's hands and legs together behind him, kind of like hog tie him. Holly is in complete shock as she is witnessing such a big guy like Chris just get detained by this small, crazy, wiry dude. And she is looking at Chris like, what the hell are you doing? And the man then turns to Holly. He takes her belt off. He forces her onto her knees, and he uses the belt to tie her arms and legs before he tells them to stay put and walks behind the electrical box again, pulling out a duffel, and begins tearing like several pieces of fabric, like a blanket apart, and he's just ripping it. So that's all that they're hearing. As the man was far enough away from them at this point, Chris begins to tell Holly that she needs to run, because what she didn't know, the real reason that Chris was following this man's orders was because on that man's hip was a fucking ice pick, like a pickaxe.
What the fuck?
Holly tells Chris that she is not leaving him, but before they could talk anymore, the man returns. Using that fabric that he had been tearing, he tied gags onto both Holly and Chris. Thinking quickly, Holly pushes her tongue out against the fabric so that way she could breathe and have room. So basically the gag would just fall down. And the guy just keeps repeating to them as he's tying them and doing these gags. He's like, look, my friend's going to be back any second. He's got a gun. You try to run away. We're shooting you in the back. Don't fucking play. Just threatening them. Next, the man drags Chris off of the tracks and down into into this like grassy ditch knoll area. And Holly, determined to not let Chris out of her sight with this man, stands up and like kind of hobbles her way down there, following them into the grass, and sits down beside Chris. Together, they stayed as calm as possible as the man then disappeared back up onto the tracks and behind that bush with the electrical box to mess with his duffel bag again. The second that he was out of sight, Holly began working on freeing herself of her binds and is talking back and forth with Chris, strategizing. And as they're doing this, the guy just keeps like walking back and forth to check on them, like every 2 minutes, then going back to his duffel. He's sort of like frantically and chaotically walking back and forth, not really necessarily doing anything that they can see, but just like, it's almost like he was guarding them.
Or like waiting on something? Maybe?
Yeah, like they kept thinking like he's waiting on his friend to get back. So they're down there talking with each other. And this felt like it went on for hours, but in reality, it probably was over a time span of 5 to 10, maybe 15 minutes. But every time this guy was coming back, he was threatening them, telling them to shut up, telling them to not look at him. And he's like getting crazier and crazier. He's like, stop messing with your bindings, be quiet, shut up. And every time that he would be barking at them, Chris and Holly, specifically Chris, would be like, you can have whatever you want. My credit cards, my ATM cards, our car, the keys are in the backpack. You can have my car. It's parked over there at the blue house. Don't hurt us. Don't hurt her. If you want something, want it from me. Well, during this time that the man was away, Holly got free from her bindings and she was able to start freeing Chris of his gag and then working on his hands and legs. And essentially, Chris tells Holly that she needs to stop, just free herself, free her legs, and run. Because his bindings were so tight. They were so tight and knotted that it was going to be impossible for either of them to get him out, especially without a knife. But each time, Holly refused, telling Chris that she was not leaving him. They were just going to follow the directions and somehow they would make it out alive. At this point, they had watched the man go from a semi-calm but crazy-eyed state, which is when he jumped out of the electrical box, to full-on escalating craziness vibrating through this dude's body and in the energy all around them. So when he came back for this last time, seeing that Holly and Chris were slowly but surely freeing themselves, he begins screaming at them to shut up, stop untying yourselves, and stop looking at me. He then forces Chris and Holly to lay on their stomachs and he storms off into the high grass behind Chris. And he's threatening them as he's doing it, like, shoving the ice pick towards them. And so he storms off, and a few minutes later, they start to hear the man return. But he's, instead of like stomping, running towards him like he has been, he's slowly stomping in the grass. Like, think like fee, fi, fo, fum type of stomps. And he's getting closer and closer to Chris's side. So Holly lifts up her head and looks over Chris to try and see what this man is doing. When from out of the darkness, she is finally able to make out his silhouette. The man was lugging a huge rock. It was a 50-pound boulder. Holly gasps and Chris turns and sees the man walking right towards him with this boulder. Chris then immediately turns to Holly and tells her to look at him. And then he repeats over and over again, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Stay calm. You're going to be okay. You need to run. Stay calm. You're going to be okay. And as Chris is looking at Holly in the eyes, repeating this, Holly looks up and makes eye contact with the man as he lifts the boulder above his head and drops it directly onto Chris.
Oh my God.
Killing him in one single blow. And Holly, when recounting this to police officers and medical professionals, she told them that he picked up the boulder and did it again and again and again. But later, investigators let her know that it was only one blow. Her brain, it was so traumatizing.
She was reliving it over.
She just replayed it over and over again. In shock, Holly lifts her eyes to meet the man's, and she said she knew in that moment he was going to rape her. There was no soul in his eyes. It was just evil darkness. He then got on top of Holly, rebinding her wrist and her legs. He flips her onto her back. He takes off her pants and her underwear, and he begins to rape her. Holly is fighting and screaming and kicking this man with everything that she had left in her. All the rage after just watching her boyfriend get murdered. She was dragging her nails into the dirt, trying to rip off her fingernails so people would know that she was there. She was ripping off her cuticles, her hair, his hair, fighting as hard as she could. At this point, the first train of the night passes on the tracks, just feet from her. And all Holly could think was the train that they had waited to see all night, and here it is when she needs it the most, and no one is seeing her as she's screaming and fighting for help. When the man stops, grabs Holly's neck, and he stabs her in the neck with the pickaxe.
Oh my God.
Or a screwdriver. So he like stabs it into her, but not all the way. And he whispers into her ear, "See how easily I could kill you?"
Oh my God.
Takes it out, lays her back down. Holly gathers herself as the man removes the weapon and continues to rape her. And Holly begins focusing on how she could survive this. She begins looking at every single detail of this man's face, arm, chest, legs, ears, hair, mouth, nose, clothes, shoes, bags, tattoos, freckles, moles, scars. She is looking at every inch of this man. And one by one, she saves these mental images and repeats them over and over in her mind so she won't forget, thinking to herself, "I'm going to find you. If I survive this, I will remember every detail about you and I will find you." When he rapes her for the second time, Holly begins to question the man. She tells him that her name is Megan. She just makes it up on the spot. And she asks how his family is. "Who is your family?" And then she talks about her own. She says, "I have a family that would love to see me again. They're great. My parents are amazing. My sister, I love her. I had a little brother. He passed away when he was 5 in a tragic accident. You know, I don't want my parents to have to live through this." She's just telling him everything. She asks him, like, "What are you searching for? How can I help you? Why what is causing this?" And all he says back to her is, "My name is James Whitford." It's a fake name. And then she asks a follow-up question and he cuts her off and he says, "I'm not going to kill you." So he finishes up his second attack and he begins kind of packing up to leave. He takes off Holly's earrings. I don't know if she had multiple or if he only took one or both. And then he takes a ring off of her finger and he keeps them as trophies. As he's doing this, Holly asks him if he would put her pants back on because when someone found her eventually, dead or alive, she didn't want to be naked. And he does it. He bends down beside her. He puts her pants back on her, fastens them, lays her back down, moves her closer to Chris, covers both her and Chris up with bushes and leaves and branches, and he just walks away. And as he's walking off, Holly says out loud to him, "Thank you for letting me live." And he just kept walking.
Holy shit.
There are a few seconds of silence, and Holly is debating on how long she needs to wait before she runs. When out of nowhere, he comes running back, this time with a giant plank of wood, and he begins bludgeoning Holly in the face and chest as she lays on her back underneath these branches and leaves. He continually and relentlessly bludgeoned her until she was no longer moving or breathing and fled. But Holly wasn't dead. She woke up anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour later, and we know that at this point it had to have been around 2 a.m. She realizes that she's covered in blood and that her jaw doesn't feel right, like her mouth wouldn't close all the way, and it was like she was shocked back to life. And she said that it was like her little brother, who she had lost at that very young age in that tragic accident, was there and just leading her.
Wow.
Because as if she was on autopilot, she jumps up and she just begins walking down the tracks. She walks 200 yards on these tracks when she stops, turns, and looks up to see directly in front of her, just wide open walking space, a house with one light on and the TV. It's the only house in this entire area with a light on, and the door is wide open. She doesn't even stop to think. She just beelines, because she doesn't have time to think, you know? Mm-hmm. She just beelines directly towards that house, through the yard, onto the front porch, and to that door, where she walks into Chad, who kept her alive until paramedics could arrive.
Wow.
Holly was rushed to the University of Kentucky Hospital, where they determined that she had a broken eye socket, a broken jaw, several cuts and lacerations to the head and the face, and several others. The injuries on her head were so severe that doctors had to just staple them without even shaving off her hair or knowing exactly what was causing it, because the bleeding was so much and it was too much. They could not see. When Holly woke up, her mother and father and sister were all surrounding her. She felt safe and covered in love and gratitude for her life, but no one was talking about Chris. Once Holly could communicate, she finally asked her dad, because even though she knew she needed confirmation, she said, "Chris is dead, isn't he?" And her dad just shook his head regretfully and said, "Yes, he's dead." Unfortunately, because of the severity of Holly's injuries and the long road of recovery that she was on, like she had to get her her jaw wired shut.
Multiple surgeries.
Yeah, and they couldn't do anything for the eye socket, so they just had to wait for the swelling to go down, just a lot. She was unable to attend Chris's funeral, which was so incredibly hard on her. And also she's dealing with survivor's guilt on top of this. So it was like another piece to it. But just because she couldn't leave didn't mean that Holly was going to lay down. She hadn't given up yet throughout that entire attack, and she wasn't going to give up now. The second that Holly was able to communicate, she immediately called for the detectives. Holly told every single detail of the story that I just told you. And then she began describing all of those details that she had locked in her memory about her attacker. 5'6" to 5'8" male, lean, wiry, muscular build. He had a Hispanic accent, dark brown or black wavy hair, and a mustache. He was wearing square, thick, black-framed seeing glasses. And investigators immediately brought out a sketch artist who created this composite and blasted it out to all media outlets in Kentucky and the surrounding areas. Within minutes of this photo going out, tips began to flood in, hundreds of them. But they were all dead ends. And honestly, the majority of them were a bit racist because the sketch was not very specific. It was just a sketch of a Hispanic man. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty generic and it got dicey.
Yeah.
But investigators then collected and identified several fingerprints and even palm prints from the crime scene and the bodies of Chris and Holly. They put them in the system hoping for a match, but unfortunately nothing came up.
I'm sure everyone was also freaking out at the university.
Freaking out, yes. So because nothing's coming up for these fingerprints in the system and they're not getting any promising leads, investigators' last hope was DNA, finding it, like praying to God that it's there. And thankfully, they were able to find it using the rape kit that was performed on Holly when she was at the hospital. Investigators were able to obtain a DNA profile of a male. They plug it into the National Database of Violent Offenders and every other database. And again, nothing. This was so discouraging because as fast as this case was moving, with the power and testimony of Holly, it pretty much immediately went cold. Now you have to remember though, DNA was newer and the databases were even newer than the DNA. So there was a lot of hope in the fact that they knew that over time these databases were going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and like not every department had access to it and had put their stuff into it yet, and it was a big initiative at that time. So as these police departments across the United States are working to get everyone's fingerprints and DNA in these databases, they're kind of like, it's sad that we're getting cold right now, but we have hope that as more and more fingerprints and DNA profiles are added, eventually they would be able to find this guy, because even if he hadn't committed a crime before this, they knew based on this MO that he wouldn't be able to wait too long before he struck again. And over a year goes by. It's now December 17th, 1998. And 39-year-old pediatric neurologist Dr. Claudia Benton was at her home alone in West University Place, Texas, which is like the greater Houston area, when someone breaks in during the middle of the night. She is raped, stabbed, and repeatedly bludgeoned to death. And thankfully, her husband and two young daughters, who were twins actually, were out of town visiting family members. And her car was stolen. It was later found in San Antonio near railroad tracks, just like Claudia's house, which is beside railroad tracks, and the car was abandoned. As investigators in Texas are waiting on fingerprints and DNA analysis to come back for Dr. Claudia Benton's murder, 5 months later, on May 2nd, 1999, married couple pastor 46-year-old Norman Siernick and his wife, 47-year-old Karen Siernick, are brutally murdered in their bed in their home in Weimar, Texas, which is about halfway between San Antonio and Houston. The couple lived in the parsonage, I think is how you say it, but it's like the church house, like for the pastor on church grounds of the United Church of Christ, which is where he was a pastor. And this just so happens to be near railroad tracks. And that night, someone broke into their home while they were sleeping, sexually assaulted and raped both victims before bludgeoning them to death with a sledgehammer, once again fleeing in the victim's car. The couple's car was found 3 weeks later in San Antonio near railroad tracks. And just like Claudia's car, finger and palm prints were found on the steering column. They happened to be a perfect match to each other. And it matches a name in the system. 40-year-old, it's Angel, but it's pronounced Angel Resendez. I don't really give a fuck how to pronounce his name, not because I don't respect the name. I don't respect him. So
Right.
We're going to call him Resendez. You could call him shitbag for all I care. Who was also known by several other aliases and several different authorities because he was known to illegally train hop from his home in Mexico to the U.S., throughout the U.S., and into Canada, throughout Canada, where he would commit several crimes ranging from robbery, breaking and entering, and as we know now, these brutal murders. Prior to learning this information in spring of 1999, Resendez had been deported to Mexico at least 4 separate times since first entering the United States in 1973. And it was like, as they were finally connecting the dots and got these matches between the Texas cases, still not even Holly's yet, they're realizing the severity of the situation because these are unregulated trains. You can hop a train at no one's checking trains, like
Right.
There's no way to know. You can hide in there. So they're thinking, holy fuck, this guy knows the rails. He's been doing this since 73 and he's just going from train to train and murdering whoever's at where he hops off.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. As they're learning this and they're putting all the pieces together and they're freaking the fuck out, Resendez's name begins popping up every day in the system. June 4th, 1999. That morning, they get a hit that he murdered a 26-year-old. Her name was Noemi Dominguez with a pickaxe in her apartment in Houston, Texas. Flees in her car. Then that same day, he murders 73-year-old Josephine Convica with the same pickaxe that he used to murder Noemi in her farmhouse in Dubina, Texas, which is near Weimar, where Dr. Claudia Benton was murdered. And this is 95 miles west from Houston, where earlier that morning he murdered Noemi.
This guy's got no specific victim MO there.
No, it's just at random.
Yeah.
It's just at random. And just like the cases before, all these attacks are near railroad tracks. Like the houses are within yards.
And at this point, they haven't connected.
They don't have Holly
Chris.
and Chris's, not yet. And just a week later, so that was on June 4th, 2 in one day, June 15th, 1999. This is exactly 7 days later. In Gorham, Illinois, Resendez murders 80-year-old George Morber Sr. George was found shot in the head with a shotgun inside of his ransacked home, which was located only 100 yards from a railroad track. And within hours, also in Gorham, 52-year-old Carolyn Frederick was bludgeoned to death with the same shotgun that was used to kill George. She wasn't shot, she was bludgeoned with the same shotgun that was used to kill George. And the next day, George's truck was located 60 miles south of Gorham in Cairo, Illinois. And DNA and fingerprints all connected Resendez to the crimes in Texas and now, thankfully, Lexington, Kentucky, because it's like a hit. Boom, boom, boom. Mm-hmm. Illinois, Kentucky, Texas. Holly finally had the name of her attacker. She had found him, like she had promised herself and Chris she would. But finding out who had done this also came with the horrific news of his several other victims. Now Holly was not only speaking for herself and Chris, she was a voice for all of the other victims as well. She was the sole survivor of a serial killer. And there were even more victims that dated back 11 years prior to Holly and Chris's attack. DNA and fingerprints connected Resendez to 15 other victims in addition to Holly and Chris.
Wow.
On March 23rd, 1986, a Jane Doe was found shot 4 times with a .38 caliber weapon with evidence of being raped in an abandoned farmhouse in Bexar County, Texas. Surprisingly, Resendez actually admitted that he had done this, and that's how they connected them. Also fingerprints later, but he had admitted to it fully. He explained what happened. He said that he met this woman. He didn't know her name. She's still a Jane Doe, and her boyfriend at a homeless shelter. And this woman allegedly had gone on a motorcycle ride with him, and they were driving through the country when she disrespected him, he says. So he pulls over because he's pissed and he shoots her. He leaves her body in that farmhouse after using her as target practice. Then, when confronted by her boyfriend...
What a sick fuck.
Yeah. Then, when confronted by her boyfriend, who allegedly, he said, did black magic, he shot and killed the boyfriend too, this time dumping his body in a creek somewhere between San Antonio and Uvalde. But this man's body has never to this day been found. And 5 years later, on July 19th, 1991 in San Antonio, Texas, Resendez murdered 22-year-old Michael White in the front yard of an abandoned downtown home. And when investigators asked him why, he said it was because Michael was gay.
What did he think he was doing?
Literally. It gets crazier. 6 years later, on March 23rd, 1997, Resendez murders 19-year-old Jesse Howell and his girlfriend, 16-year-old Wendy Von Heuben, in Ocala, Florida, because he believed that they were anti-Christians. So he bludgeons Jesse to death with a rail car air brake hose, leaves his body beside the tracks, turns on Wendy, who he rapes, strangles, and suffocates to death using his hands and duct tape interchangeably. Weirdly enough, though, he buries her in a shallow grave nearby instead of just leaving him, leaving her.
Is that one of the only ones he's buried? Only victims?
Yeah. Well, because he covered up all of the victims.
Okay.
He would cover them with something, but I don't think he covered up the boyfriend. He just left him by the tracks. Weird. 4 months later, on July 5th, 1997, Resendez murders 54-year-old drifter Roberto Castro in Colton, California, by beating him to death with a piece of plywood in a rail yard. And a month later, on August 29th, he attacks Holly and murders Chris in Lexington, Kentucky. It doesn't stop there, though, because between Holly and Chris's murder and attack and Dr. Claudia Benton, which began the connecting of all of these in Texas, Resendez murders 87-year-old Leafy Mason in Hughes Springs, Texas, after breaking into her home and beating her to death with an antique fire iron on October 4th, 1998. And then just 7 days before murdering Dr. Claudia Benton in Houston, Texas, on December 10th, 1998, Resendez murders 81-year-old Fannie Whitney Byers in Carl, Georgia, after breaking into her home located near a railway track and bludgeoning her to death with a tire rim. And I know that's a lot.
Holy shit, yeah.
It's a lot. And that's like the point there I was talking about, where like I wish I could give you more detail and like tell you each of these individual victim stories, but like this is so much and so bad. I just was like, let me not out of not having respect for them, but just honestly just wanting to explain what happened without drawing this out, because it's dark. I know that's a lot, but I want to take us back to where investigators are. Because remember, we left off before I went on that tangent telling you his entire rap sheet. All of these cases being connected in the database and all of these aliases are coming together, but investigators have no idea where the fuck he's at.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna ask, how did they catch him?
They have no idea where he's at and where he's going next. So it's June 15th, 1999, and those 2 Illinois murders happen.
He had to be on FBI's most wanted, right?
By June 21st, Resendez was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, and a reward was set for somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 for any information that would lead to his arrest. And a nationwide manhunt for Resendez began. Trains were randomly stopped in search in the areas that he would frequent, and helicopters were flying over top all of these as they were stopped to make sure that no one was running. The media gave him the name the Railroad Killer to plaster his face everywhere and get the story to be sensationalized in order to raise awareness. And this case was really all that the media was talking about. During this manhunt, America's Most Wanted, the TV show, dedicates a segment to Holly's survival story and the craziness that is these connected crimes and finding Resendez. As they're doing this segment, a call comes into their tip line. And on the other line, a woman speaks saying, quote, "I believe I am the railroad killer's sister."
Oh my God.
And she was. His own sister was calling to turn him in from her home in Durango, Mexico. She explained that she knew where her brother was. He was hiding in Mexico. And that she, along with several close family members and friends, knew Resendez was tired of running and that he was so tired that he might be willing to surrender. Because at this point, not only the U.S. was after him, Mexico was also after him because he had committed several crimes down there. And plus, it like makes them look really fucking bad.
Yeah.
And plus, I really do think that his family was just over his bullshit, like fully disgusted by knowing the extent of the truth behind his lies, which I'm going to come back to about why it was so disgusting, even more so than you'd think. But his sister later said that the reason why she called was because she was honestly worried that he would kill another woman. And number two, that their family would be hunted down by Mexican bounty hunters. So she was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. I'm turning him in myself.
Good on her.
On July 12th, 1999, Resendez surrendered on the El Paso border bridge after getting out of his sister's car halfway through, walking towards U.S. authorities. And his sister was given $80,000 of the reward for her help. Resendez tried to enter an insanity plea, but was ruled to be mentally fit to stand trial. You literally, when hearing this...
cognitively knew what you were doing for the last however many years.
Right, and like it had to be said if he was mentally fit, because, I mean, hearing this, you're like, this person's crazy. There's no way someone in their fucking right mind would act like this.
Right.
But it's true. That's his right mind. He thinks that he can do that. So they're like, jury, just to make it clear, bro is totally sane. Investigators know that Resendez murdered at least 15 individuals. That's what they could confirm and that he admitted to. But he could have possibly killed as many as 23 people that he is the top suspect for. He would,
in addition, or 23 total?
In a total.
Okay.
Yeah. He would mainly use rocks, pickaxes, or other blunt objects to kill his victims. Rarely ever a gun. I think it was only that one time or two times. And he would primarily target houses so that he could linger around the home after he committed the murders, shower, eat. For each of his crimes, he would take trophies, he would take jewelry, family heirlooms, and other sentimental items from the home. And he would lay everything out before he left and put the items he had collected beside the victims' IDs and like sit there and try to figure out what their story was.
What the fuck?
And then he would take these items
the story
and
that you ended,
gift the jewelry and items to his wife, mother, and sister. That's what I was talking about.
Oh my God.
Because when all this is going out, they're saying what the attacker has taken as trophies. And the sister's looking around like,
I have that ring.
I have that earring. I've got that ring. I've got that necklace. I've got that diamond. Yeah. What he didn't give to them, he melted down and sold for cash. Oddly enough, though, he would leave cash behind and other money at most of the houses, or if he did take it, he wouldn't take all the money that was in the homes or on the victims. And he also did not rape all of his victims. And later, like, behavioral science people came forward and basically determined that sex was not his primary intent. Like, that was just, this is so awful to say, but like in his mind it was like a bonus. Like it wasn't, it was just like a second thing that came.
Yeah.
That was not his primary intent with his attacks, meaning that he wasn't driven by robbery and he wasn't driven by sex. So he just thrill killed at random for no particular reason. Not that that makes it.
So they analyzed him and there was no religious like scope behind it. Like, because I feel like these were anti-Christians. This was a gay man. Like there was nothing.
Yeah, he's like, he's like a strong Catholic or whatever.
Okay.
But it's not like
it wasn't like I'm doing the Lord's work, like delusion.
Not back then.
God sent me to do this, like things like that.
They don't think he ever thought like that until he started acting like he was.
Yeah.
To try and get that insanity plea, which I'm going to come back to. There's no rhyme, no reason, no plan. Just whenever he felt the urge, whenever he jumped off at a stop and it looked right. And whatever he got out of these random attacks, money, trophies, this is horrific to say, but raping a victim, that was just like a bonus. It was an afterthought for him. Oh, that's so fucking awful to say. I hope you guys like understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, because that just feels awful saying. It was a long and really hard process as prosecutors prepared to take this case to court because, he's trying to make himself look like he's crazy even though he's completely fit. And the U.S. is also kind of in like this legal battle with Mexico.
That's what I was also going to question. And were there any murders in Canada?
I don't think there were any murders that were confirmed in Canada.
Okay.
And
Canada would deny it anyway.
Yeah. Canada would be like, oh, no, everything's fine.
Nothing
here.
happens here.
Nothing
like
happens
that.
Here. We're so fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. We're nice. Go on,
They
man.
hate on our Canadians. We love you guys.
Yeah, no, not
but
that.
Y'all on
the royal government.
y'all on social media act just couldn't happen here.
Didn't know. Yeah. So does your government.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, sorry for the Canada hate.
We actually love Canada.
Yeah, we like Canada a lot. We got a lot going for Canada.
But I could see them
Me
being
too.
like, hands are washed of this situation. Mexico and US, go ahead and take care of it.
Yeah, so I have no idea. But anyways, Mexico's like fighting the US and they're like, we want him back. We want him back. And the Mexico's like, I mean, and the US is like, specifically Texas, which is holding him.
Oh yeah, no shot.
No
sorry.
fucking shot. Sorry. I mean, Rangers were like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, we're at least taking him to court. So they like, okay, you can take him to court, you know?
And he surrendered himself to U.S. authorities.
He surrendered himself to U.S. authorities.
But at the border.
He did not over the border. They crossed the border. He surrendered himself. So he had been hiding in Mexico from both the authorities and then was like, I'd rather go to U.S. So he does that instead. It's a long, hard process as prosecutors prepare to take this case to court, but they had something that would put Resendez behind bars, no doubt. And he wouldn't see it coming. Holly.
He didn't know she was alive.
He had no idea she was alive.
Oh, so she faced him?
The trial commenced in early 2000. He was found guilty, and for the sentencing, Holly was flown to Houston to take the stand in front of the jury, her family, the court, and Resendez.
Oh my God.
Holly was asked the second she took the stand what she did that weekend, to which she answered, I graduated college. Before she told her story of her survival, giving every single detail that she had locked in her mind. She talked about Chris. She talked about Chad helping her. And when asked at the end, she looked at her attacker for the first time, because the whole time she didn't look at him, for the first time in the eyes since that 1997 August night when he attacked her. And she identified him, Resendez, as the man that nearly killed her. And it was so triggering for her to look at him that she nearly passed out, but fought through it as she described exactly what he was wearing sitting in court that day. But she did it. She made it through it with strength and vengeance. And on May 22nd, 2000, Resendez was sentenced to death by a Texas court, with his execution being scheduled for June 27th, 2006. Happy birthday, Taylar, 8-year-old.
Happy 8th birthday, Taylar.
Yeah. Side note, before I even keep going, I need to tell you guys this because it was so weird. I had 4 cases that I had picked out last week. All 4 cases had my birthday in them. All 4 of them. One had June 27th, 1998. It was a beautiful Saturday morning.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it was a little girl. And I almost covered it, but I was like,
this doesn't feel right.
Something
right
is
now.
crazy. Something is crazy. I need to do more.
So weird.
Yeah. So I'm going to cover that soon. Maybe I'll cover it next week just because I want to, like, what the fuck are the chances? Never once we ever said June 27th on here. Crazy.
That's weird.
Yeah. So Resendez appeals and appeals and appeals and appeals, claiming that he's not mentally competent enough to be executed. So they send him to a psychiatrist. They do all the testing. And on June 21st, 2006, a week before his scheduled date, a Houston judge says, you're completely competent. And all these psychiatrists know it. Mm-hmm. At which point, Resendez responds and says, quote, I don't believe in death. I know the body is going to go to waste, but me as a person, I'm eternal. I am going to be alive forever. And then he explains that he's
fucking Ted Bundy said too.
He's a half man, half angel. And then he basically is like, good luck executing me. I'm divine. Shut the fuck up. A psychiatrist comes out and he's like, look, he's basically pushed himself into a delusional state. He's not crazy. He did this to himself. He's basically in a panic about dying. Mm-hmm. So on June 27th, 2006, my 8th birthday, 46-year-old Resendez was executed in Huntsville, Texas by lethal injection. And in his final statement, Resendez said, it's like a week earlier, he's like, fuck you guys, I'm half man, half angel. And then he says this on the day of his execution, quote, I want to ask if it's in your heart to forgive me. You don't have to. I know I allowed the devil to rule my life. I just ask that you forgive me and ask the Lord to forgive me for allowing the devil to deceive me. I thank God for having patience in me. I don't deserve to cause you pain. You do not deserve this. I deserve what I am getting. And then he was pronounced dead at 8:05 p.m. Central Time. And Holly Dunn did not attend his execution because she said she didn't want to see yet another person die in front of her. She had already seen one person.
Personally, I feel like lethal injection was a really nice way for him to go.
Yeah, but Dr. Claudia Benton's husband, George, he did go to the execution and said that Resendez was, quote, evil contained in human form, a creature without a soul, no conscience, no sense of remorse, no regard for the sanctity of human life, end quote.
Wow.
Holly Dunn now runs Holly's House in Evansville, Indiana, which is a local sex abuse and domestic violence advocacy center to help victims of any kind of intimate crimes. And she is now happily married to an amazing man named Jacob, who she met the same year as her attack, when she got a job working at this local outdoorsy store. Aww. Just to do it in honor of Chris, who loved the adventures and outdoors. He like reminds me of Dugan, just like a free spirit, loves nature, a good big teddy bear, just a sweetheart. Holly says that Jacob was so incredible and patient with her throughout this entire process that he has played a role in healing her, along with her sister Heather, who never left her side. And inside and out, they have healed her with their love and their care. And that is the case of Holly K Dunn Pendleton, the sole survivor of the railroad serial killer.
I have never heard of him.
Never once.
Thank
in my
God.
life. Thank
I'm glad.
God. I could have gone my entire life. I mean, no, because the people like Holly deserve
absolutely
for us to hear. But like, oh my God.
But I'm so glad this man isn't glorified in his tactics like other serial killers
I'm so
are.
glad he's not an infamous serial killer. Like, that's fucking unbelievable.
Do you have an update on like Chad or?
Yeah, Chad's like in all of the documentaries. Like every single thing. Chad's in them all. Chad is.
He's up there telling.
Yeah, and he's just like now he looks like, you know, an old frat dad that you would look through their books and be like that's what he looks like. And he comes on, and his name's Chad Goetz. I'm like, yeah, but you're a fucking goat.
Yeah, Chad.
Yeah, like what type of college woman walks in there? This girl, younger than him, he could tell. And immediately he's like, get on my couch, lay down, let me call 911, let me shut the door. You know, majority of college, like, oh, what the fuck? You know what I mean? No, not Chad. Chad was like on it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And like, what are the chances that she just walks 200 yards, turns, and this door is open, he's up, it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, he was meant to be awake.
What are you studying for? It's the second day of classes.
Yeah, he's watching TV.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just crazy that he just happened to be up and in there.
What a story.
Yeah. So that's the case. And
I'm glad Holly got
a happy ending, but horrific.
Absolutely terrible.
Horrific. Oh my God. I mean,
and now I'm like, how do they monitor trains through the borders?
No, not even that. How the fuck do you just monitor trains? Like, if we're monitoring trucks by way stations and tracking them and like x-ray shit, how are you doing that to trains? They need to go through like TSA.
I know that it was like in the 90s and early 2000s and early 90s.
But like, are we doing any better now?
Right. I'm like, how did this man just bounce back and forth?
From train to train to train to train to train. Yeah. With no one seeing him on there.
With a pickaxe, with a shotgun,
covered in blood.
Anything?
Nothing?
That's weird.
Yeah. It's giving me like Mina Airport, Barry Seal.
Yes.
Railroad Boys on the Tracks murders. Like, it's just giving that, you know?
Mm-hmm. It very much is.
Yeah. Although I know that he's behind it. There's no bigger conspiracy.
I think you did a great job covering that case. Unfortunately for, I think, the listeners and myself, you really were able to paint the picture and we were able to visualize everything. So I guess
I'm not laughing.
Great job on that part, but also fuck you for that.
Fuck me for that.
But yeah, you did a great job.
Good. I'm glad, because I literally for 4 days watched every single episode on this case.
Is there something out on it?
Oh, there's 48 Hours. There's one on A&E on Hulu. There's 2020. She does a lot of speaking engagements and does like a lot of advocacy work. She tells her story. There's a whole book. She wrote a whole book, her and her sister together, about the entire story. I read like snippets of it. But I mean, there's so much and about her story.
I looked them up. I always look up the victims like at the beginning when Taylar starts. I need to put a picture with, you know, the story. A face with the story. And there's a picture.
I know.
Of Chris.
Yeah.
With a little golden retriever. And my heart is shattered.
I know. Do you see the necklace that he was wearing in it? So he made that necklace. And also, when he was at that Fish concert, he went to one of those like quarter gumball machines and he got a ring for Holly. And during the attack, she lost it. and they never found it. She went and searched all over for it, and police did, and they couldn't find it anywhere, and he didn't take it. So they don't know what happened to it. But yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And like Holly and Chris's families, like, you know, it's so bad. It's so bad.
No.
I couldn't imagine.
No, me neither.
I'm fucked up even thinking about it.
Yeah, this is very BTK.
Yeah. So anyways, what I had done is I watched so much on it that like when I was typing out what happened, I didn't even need to like reference. Like I obviously like checked my
facts.
Went back and checked my facts, but like telling it, I was literally just recounting when I gave you the first 2 sections, which was Chad's house and then the attack, was me just recounting it based on my memory and confirming facts again also of how she had described it and how I felt in doing it. And because I was just, there's no way to type that out. Like there's no way to type it out like a case. It's truly what the fuck happened and like the most detail, and it's her detail. She remembers every single step of it. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I'm sick.
No, that kind of makes me like sad for her in a way that she does remember so much detail.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, dude, she fucking went right. She didn't even like. She took like a month off, 2 months off, 4 months off to recover. I don't know. But was back in school. Boom, graduates. Boom.
Good for her. Good for you, Holly.
Yeah.
If you ever listen to this.
Oh, and so another thing about Chris, I feel like I didn't talk about Chris enough. That's like one of the things I regret not being able to give more information on. But like another thing about Chris, he was like doing theater, like the arts program, and he was focusing on lighting and stuff for like stage.
Chris, we would have hired you.
I know. Like. I'm like, oh,
you
like we were literally this whole week we've been talking about lighting and and studios and stuff. I'm like, that's crazy. And my birthday was in that case. I just felt like I was like, this is the case I have to tell. But you know, he was just like free love. We're gonna go explore. I want to do lighting, like very artsy. And meanwhile, like Holly, when she was little, she told everyone, I'm gonna be the first female president of the United States. And
I love that her brother was.
I know,
because he was.
Yeah, he 100%. You cannot tell me any. That's more spiritual than anything. You know. Anyways, that's the case, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to me. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry to everyone, and but like people need to know this story.
Absolutely.
You know, people need to know Holly's story. A sole survivor of a serial killer.
I want to read the book.
Yeah. It's the pieces that I read in the chapters that I was able to read before, they were in even more detail. And like just the story of it's crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, guys.
Well, love ya.
Love you so much. See you next week. Send in your cryptid, creepy accounts, and Patreon. Don't forget to look out for a message from us about this upcoming month. And guys, we're so close to season 5. Me and Morgan, we're at Home Depot this weekend.
Yeah, we were.
We did a work day. There are samples of tape to map out furniture and samples of paint all over these walls behind that camera.
Because there's no way you can just pick a couple different shades of a color. You have to take home 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 different samples.
Yeah.
And tape them on the wall.
Yeah. Duh, what else? So yeah, just know that shit's coming alive, guys. So love you so much. See you next week. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Oh my God. Wait, it's going to be September when we talk to you next. Happy September. Chin in my. Love you. Bye.